May I thank the sponsor of this resolution. This resolution is excellently written. It talks about Litekyan, Ritidian. It gives the history of the land takings of this place. It names the people whose lands were taken. It talks about the history and what the Department of the Navy has concluded in regards to this property. And it calls on our governor and our congressmen. And it's going to be sent to the President of the United States of America, to the Vice President, to the U.S. Secretary of the Department of Interior, the U.S. Department of the Navy, U.S. Geological Survey Director, the U.S. House of Representatives Natural Resources Committee members, U.S. Senate's counterpart, to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and appropriately so. We have a full agenda today in this session this week, maybe next week, but this resolution might absolutely be the most important thing that we do. It's really almost like our last stand when it comes to Ritidian Litekyan. Decades ago, some of the first Guam Congresses protested the massive land takings by the Department of Navy at that time and the resettlement of the CHamoru people, moved them around, told them to go live in other places. And we see the effects of that today. We see this in our social structures. We see the impacts on those who were made landless. We see the impacts on the fishing grounds that were taken, prohibited. And so for decades, the Guam Congress, different members, they were up in arms. And they repeated that it seems like there was too much land being taken, and it didn't seem fair. It didn't seem like it was for the benefit of the CHamoru people. It also seemed to them like the massive land takings also included large recreational areas, including beaches. And those recreational areas were being cleared. Well, their deemed recreational areas were being cleared of lati and other historical pieces from the CHamoru culture. Ritidian is one of the remaining places that shows, according to the archaeologists, the different periods of Guam, the different periods of the world, different sea levels. It shows where the CHamoru's lived when the seas were different. It shows how they lived. So, of course, previous legislatures and recent legislatures, in my first term, some of the senators were bold enough. We tried to stop the destruction of thousands of acres at Tailalu, up on Ritidian, up above on the cliff line where they are building a massive live fire training range. All the studies said at that time this would destroy thousands of pristine limestone forests, not available anywhere else in the world or on Guam, with endangered species that had not been successful in being replanted anywhere else. And as the author of the resolution points out, they still are not successful. It also destroyed historic sites. They call it data collection, where they clear the land of all the artifacts, move them, move any trace of the CHamoru people living there. Remove future generations' ability to determine what took place there and why, which archaeologists do not know yet, and they continue to speculate, but they remove that opportunity for our future generations to know about our history. And when they were considering where to build this fire range, this place above Ritidian was listed number 5 out of 5, the most destructive alternative for the Navy to pursue in terms of archaeological sites, forests, endangered species, everything. But they pursued it anyways. When they had choices, and today they have choices of where to. They want to take down the building because they don't want anyone to be there when they are doing their live fire training. And they've already told us they're going to close Ritidian, the wildlife center that they've been holding from these indigenous families for 50 years. They're going to close that center, tear it down, so no one will go there and be in the harm's way of their live fire ranges up above. And they've told the fishermen over 300 days of the 365 days in a year, you're not going to be allowed in that area because that's a surface danger zone for their live fire training. They continue to tell us. They give us 11,000 pages of environmental studies that talk about the adverse impacts to Guam. And then they promise, don't worry, a one Guam approach. We're going to give you back land. We're going to give you back land. But that's not what we see. Today we see they want to tear down one building on the right side of the land, move it over to the left side of the land, and let's impact other places of this property with other cultural significance. And let's just continue to impact this property. Let's continue to prohibit the people from accessing this property. Let's continue to keep this property away from the original landowners. While the military has acres and acres of land for a visitors center to brief them on what is available in the wildlife refuge. They kept this property for decades over the objection of previous legislatures. The previous legislatures passed laws saying we were going to fight their taking of Ritidian. They put money towards that. They were unsuccessful. The Navy transferred the property over to another branch of the federal government, supposedly to save the birds. That didn't happen, as you know. They have brown tree snake projects up there, or they did. None of those continue. None of their supposed reasons for taking the land continue. They haven't saved the birds. The brown tree snakes are still there. The indigenous species are not flourishing. And yet, this is one of those very unique areas on Guam. We've got caves with pictographs. We've got, these are unique in the world. Lati are unique in the world. Even CHamoru pottery is unique in the world. And this is why I support this resolution, and I ask my colleagues to do the same, and I ask the governor and the congressman, let's do this together. We tried to put a pause on the destruction of the limestone forest and for the firing range. The legislature tried, but that was not joined by the rest of the government. We tried to stop sonar use in our waters, which fishermen report having an adverse impact on the sea life, the mammals. This is actually known around the world. Hawaii was successful in getting some areas off limits, but not all. And Guam is suffering the same fate, where we have a training and testing area, probably largest in the world, surrounding Guam and the CNMI's waters, where they get to come, the United States military, and test sonar, test all their live fire. That's what they test, live fire. We weren't able to stop that, despite thousands of testimony in opposition. The people of Guam united, and they opposed it. They opposed the adverse impacts. Our most patriotic sons and daughters who served in the military opposed these adverse impacts. But we were not able to stop the adverse impacts there, or the ones that were predicted for our hospital, socioeconomic structure, even voting rights. Those were predicted in the EIS as well. But I want to name, because the sponsor has done such a good job in this resolution of highlighting exactly why we're doing this, the disregard of the federal government when they say things like, no significant impact regarding the federal designation of the refuge. It does not constitute a major federal action significantly affecting the quality of the human environment. Natural processes under which much of the area has evolved will be permitted to continue, with the exception of the control of alien species. No private lands are included within the proposed refuge. Of course, because they took the private lands and put them under their name. I find that very insulting, because these are, and the sponsor also included in this resolution, the original landowners. Juan San Nicolas Aguero, Dolores Martinez Flores, Benigno Leon Guerrero Flores, Juan Mendiola Castro, Juan Rivera Castro, Ana Mantanani Pangilinan, Ingracia Castro Perez, Tomas L.G. Castro, Gregorio L.G. Castro, Maria Castro Ada, Maria Castro Camacho, Julia Castro Stevens, Francisco L.G. Castro, Concepcio Castro Camacho, and Santiago L.G. Castro, Juan S.N. Aguero, and Maria T. Aguero, and their descendants who live with us today, who have never stopped asking for our help to get their land back. And all of this while we face more action in the establishment of a missile defense system that proposes to prohibit, again, action on Ritidian, access to Irunao, access to Hinapsen. So I stand in full support of this resolution, and I commend the sponsor, and I ask the people of Guam and my colleagues here in the legislature, let's be united in this. Of all things, this. And let's be diligent And let's be loud, and let's be vocal, and let's not stop, because those before us for decades, they put themselves on the line for this, for the return of land, for the stopping of the destruction of these lands, for this, to halt the prohibitions on fishing grounds. So yes, we are all emotional, well, some of us, but I feel like emotion is very important today. Because despite our official work, our official letters, our official resolutions, the people of Guam have been ignored for decades. But I say let's not stop, continue, not eat on them.